Hello, welcome to the Reasonably Effective podcast brought to you by myself, Uncommon Fossil, and 10 Types. Why don't you say hello?
Yep. Hello, everyone.
So, coming with episode 25, we are climbing up there in terms of the episodes we've put out there. So, hopefully, you're enjoying it. If you do, give a like. You can leave comments, particularly on our YouTube channel, with it. And we're going to talk primarily about our favorite V-Stars and V-Maxes. And I think 10 Types actually took some polls on his YouTube page. So we have that. But just talking briefly about live and the forums in particular. This week, probably the big drama with Pokemon was the forums. They put out a posting saying, hey, here's the forums. We're not telling people about it. And then people just started putting up a lot of junk up there, and the forums got shut down for a couple of days. Now it's back and highly moderated, so it makes it less useful because you don't know if what you're going to say is being approved and how long it takes to show up. But that's where that's at. But I did want to I did that because I want to mention one comment. There's a positive comment, which we don't get a lot.
And by the way, I was promised I was going to laugh lots after hearing this, so this better be funny. You're already laughing. Very impressive.
I am being misquoted, I will say, but that's what happens with the media and especially things like YouTube, right? So that's what you come to expect. So you hold that up. So here's a comment, a positive one. So here it goes. The title: "Tried TCG Live, and I gotta say it's quite fun!" Exclamation point. Okay. This is their one and only post. So this
I'm already laughing.
It's a comedy to come. And now you see what you got to do to get approved too by the moderators, right? So it says here, this game is quite nice. No ads or microtransactions, which is true, and those are both positives.
Yeah, that's good.
So and then here's and then they say after that, it even comes with a free hand warmer on some phones. So
and it's true. I'd say most, and some computers as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're being overly kind by some phones because it heats up the phone or it just doesn't work on the phone at all, I think. So I think, they said something nice that they made. I think it's a little humorous at the end, right? I think it's good. It wasn't a big dig or a rip, which is good. We don't need it to be overly negative, but it's
a diss track. Nah. By the way, check out my diss track on my YouTube channel.
Yes, I don't think if you wanted to post your diss track lyrics as a forum post, it would get approved. But
maybe I should try. I'll try that. I'll try that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they need to develop live, but unfortunately, they're not having to put their resources towards forum moderators. So that might be a move in the wrong direction. But
but the forums aren't mostly live now. It used to just be live, but now it's random stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, I used to look in the forums at like the new comments, which is the page I would log into, which you'd see that and which shows whatever 5 or 8 new posts, and they were always live.
Doesn't work.
Right, and now they're not about live. The one thing now that they're moderating, though, there's a lot less issues with live. Those comments are very slow to get approved. So anyway, unless you want to talk about live more, why don't we move into our topic for the week?
Yeah, let's do that. And so hopefully, again, we're sorting in Pokemon TCG Live. So hopefully the cards are in the right order. We're not going card by card, though.
Right.
As you said earlier, though, we're talking about our favorite VMAX and V-Stars of each type. I did polls like this on my channel. It was a little awkward to do for some of them, but I think I got stuff. So let's just start with Grass, and I'll say my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Grass is not good. It's notoriously bad. Especially through this era, but there are some cool ones. And honestly, I think my favorite is going to be Orbital VMAX with its ability Eerie Beam. If it's in the active, you place a damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. And then Gmax Wave is a pretty generic, but still pretty decent attack. Gmax Wave, 50 and 50 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. This Pokemon also isn't in the standard form anymore, which is a thing worth noting.
Right.
Some of the VMAXs aren't in standard. So this one's cool. I like it because you just kind of chill and spread damage, and you can attack some, but you don't need to attack that much to do damage.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've never played it, so I know you liked it, so not surprised. And like you said, we're doing all the VMAXs and V-Stars, so the deregulation mark VMAXs have rotated, so they're included with this. And I think there's 14 of these Grass ones, which is a decent number as far as cards to choose from in there. It is pretty poor. My favorite, which I know isn't great, but I enjoyed playing it a lot, is Delmai's VMAX, which probably shouldn't be a surprise to you. two attacks. Max Anchor for 3 energy does 240, which isn't bad. This is also rotated. And then it can't use that attack next turn, which isn't great. But at least it does have an alternate attack, which sometimes these cards can't attack at all. And Swinging Chain for 1 grass, but it does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each grass energy attached. So you can build up a lot of grass energy. You can hit hard on the bench. The retreat cost is 3, which isn't great for one that you can't use the one attack the next turn. But that was the grass Pokemon that I played the most and had the most fun with.
Yeah. And also another one I want to mention, I guess, is going to be I think I really like Celebi VMAX as well, which is kind of interesting. It's very basic again, but once during your turn, for each of your Celebis, you may heal 20 damage from each of your grass Pokemon. We've seen similar stuff like Radiant Starmina and other forms of healing, but I personally like this one. Its attacks, again, pretty boring. It does 130 for 2 and searches for Pokemon.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just like a cool Pokemon. I think healing can be fun, but it's kind of bad as well.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the other grass Pokemon aren't that good to pair it with is a big drawback. I want to mention one which I think you like too, and that's Leafeon Vstar, which was probably that's for me my number 2 choice. 260 HP is a little low for a V-Star at 2 prizes there. Its attack did 180 for 3, which is okay. Takes 30 less damage the next turn. I think, was this actually the first V-Star that was printed?
Yeah. It was tied for first.
One of the first 2, right, that came out.
Mm-hmm.
Is like tins or some special product, I think. So the attack was okay. It's obviously gotten overpowered by other ones, but then its V-Star power, IV-Star ability is useful, where you switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active, so it's a boss's order, but not using your supporter for turn. So it certainly had, especially when it first came out, there were really not many choices for V-Star, so it had some value in decks.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Notably, there's a really good Leafeon V, which accelerates energy. And I think I don't know. I like it. You know, it's with the Beefeon deck, which is kind of funny.
Right.
Which wasn't like that good of a deck. It was kind of like weird, but it was a fun one. But Leafeon itself isn't actually that interesting. It was the first one, so it was interesting at the time.
Right, and we both played it. I mean, of these grass ones, it's been more played probably between the two of us. It might be the one that's seen the most play for us personally. And I just want to mention the Leafeon VMAX that could go in the same deck with the Leafeon V-Star because they both evolved from Leafeon V, which does have a useful ability where it does, for 2 grass energy, 60 damage per retreat costing your opponent's Pokemon. So, which was a decent deck at one point in time. And I played it a little bit too, more recently with Spidops, but you know, it's viable.
Yeah. So do you want to take a guess at? So by the way I phrased it on my YouTube channel was which of these is your favorite? And then I actually had to do multiple things because you can only do 5 things on YouTube all at a time. But you want to take a stab at which was the people's favorite grass one? Yeah.
Right, and for us, this is our favorite. It's not necessarily the best one. Grass, I'm not sure there is a best one anyway. But some of them, our choices clearly are not the best option. Grass, wow, that is a tough one. I'm really not sure what it is. I'll say Superior V-Star because it's in a starter deck, so people may know it more, but I'm not sure.
No, I might have forgotten one on the polls, but whatever, that's fine. It's not for grass. It is Leafeon VMAX. So
okay,
that surprised me. I don't know. It's probably the best.
Yeah, it was the only one that was a solid. For at one point in time, it was, I think, a top 10 deck for sure. Right, briefly.
Yeah.
Back with that stadium that's rotated, which I don't remember the name.
Galar Mine, yeah.
With Galar Mine, so you could play it. So these others, I don't think you really could make a successful deck with.
Yeah, I forgotten Dialga V-Star in one of them, but it's fine. No one likes Dialga anyway.
No, that's obviously a garbage Pokemon there, but we'll save that for later. Okay, so go on to the next type now, which is fire.
Yes. Yeah, and this is, you like fire. I mean, I like fire, but
yeah, this one has. I'm just taking a look. There's 11 Pokemon here, so noticeably less. Obviously has Charizard, everybody's favorite Pokemon, so I'm not sure how the polls will be I'll kick it off. And this one is, for me, a simple choice, and it's not necessarily the best one. I guess it probably is not the best one, but Blaziken VMAX Rapid Strike. Pokemon, uh, which is still in format. I still mess around with it sometimes. It has Max Blaze for 2 colorless energy, so you can pay for it with a Rapid Strike energy. Then you choose up to 2 of your bench Rapid Strike Pokemon and attach an energy from the discard pile to each of them. Can be a basic or a special energy, so it's a way to help set up your bench Pokemon. You can play it in a Rapid Strike box. You can pair it with I've tried it, powering up Urshifus with it. In Sylveon box is probably one way I like to do it. Zero or a V, which then can alternate and hit the bench to get that set up. You can do things with it, right? It's not the strongest, but I've enjoyed messing with it.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't know. I like that one. I don't know. It's kind of interesting, certainly. I went with, honestly, I'm not sure. I ended up going with Semi-Zero V-Star. I think it's fun. It's kind of bad, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure this is Ember Powers might be his favorite Pokemon.
Okay.
But also the Ember Star V-Star Power is interesting. 30 for each energy in your discard pile, which can hit really hard. In Fireball Fever, like milling cards in the top of your deck, it's interesting. To me, most of them are pretty boring. I also like Heatran VMAX, which is like a healing one again. Cinderace VMAX as well. Cinderace VMAX, I was tempted to say, if it gets hit into it, like returns the same amount of damage. It was kind of interesting. That being said, it isn't actually like the most unique thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not like a big fan of the fire ones in general, though. I feel like most of them are pretty boring.
Yeah, it's not a strong set, and I think to me it really says some bad things about grass, just because these fire big dogs aren't that strong, and yet grass can't be any good. So the other fire one I would mention is Victini VMAX. I played that a moderate amount of times. You kind of hate it because it's potentially the most linear brain dead deck around. At times you just would play 4 Victini VMAXs and you just kind of see what cards you randomly drew into and just do whatever kit you had, right? And just kind of proceed through the game that way. And it was a weird one. Max Victory did for 2 energy 100 damage. If your opponent's was active V, it did 120 more. So 220, which is okay. But obviously you're not one-shotting another VMAX. And then if it's not a V, you're doing 100, which sometimes doesn't even knock out a single prize Pokemon. So it was a bit disappointing at times.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I thought it was a very brain dead deck. Yeah, it depended how you play it, obviously, but
Yeah.
a lot of people started playing it with just 4/4, and then just like a bunch of like, I don't know. You'd pretty much just attach energies and then just attack. It was really boring. Yeah, I don't really have anything good to say about it. So again, do you want to keep up with trying to guess what other people said?
Yeah. So this obviously there's 2 Charizards. So I mean the Charizard VMAX is just
Charizard VMAX was bad. Charizard V-Star was certainly all right.
Yeah, so I don't think it could be Charizard VMAX. I mean the one attack did 300 damage, which is good, but 5 energy, which is just insane. Charizard V-Star, could be played, but I'll say Victini VMAX because that was the one I think that saw the most play. Oh wait, Centiskorch VMAX was a strong deck at one point when it was out because there was Welder too. So I'll Centiskorch VMAX, I'll say.
You will be happy to hear it's actually your boy Blaziken won.
No way. All right.
Yeah.
Glad to hear
Yeah, unless
that.
you had like missed other ones. And by the way, if I missed anything, I'm gonna blame Robin Schultz at Limitless because that's what I used to get the cards. So if I missed anything, I'll blame him, even though it was definitely my fault. But yeah, Blaziken won.
Good. Glad to
hear. Everyone's here at Fire Chicken.
Yeah, some of what they're based upon are less than intimidating, but that
Blaziken's a cool Pokemon, I think. It's the VMAX.
Yeah, I mean it does something a little different than some, right? And energy acceleration is always good.
Yeah.
So next we have water. We have 15 of them, so that's a solid number to choose from. And this is a much stronger set of cards than what we've seen from before. There's some, a couple top meta decks here. My top pick is going to be my boy Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX. I really enjoyed the deck. It was a strong deck. Max Lance, 10 damage for 2 energy, but you could discard up to 2 energy. If you do, it does 120 more. So it would hit 250. Choice Belt would get to 280 to knock out a V Star, which was a decent number. So it was fairly easy early on. Obviously, you had the Intellion engine, so it really set up quite nicely. It's certainly much tougher to play now. I haven't really done much with it. And then the other attack certainly was an alternate against single prize decks that like to fill up the bench. For 2 energy, you didn't have to discard them. So a strong deck, and it was a strong deck for quite a while.
Yeah, yeah. I also think that one's kind of boring. I like. There are a few I like here. I like Alone Vulpix V-Star. I think this is the one. It might be my favorite. It's a cool wall and like counter Pokemon. Obviously, it can be kind of annoying, but it's very powerful and also versatile as well, which is kind of fun, but not. It's not like amazing overall. And also both Intellion VMAX is the one that attacks and spreads is one that I've enjoyed a lot. Admittedly, it's not the most powerful, but it's fun. And then the other one that's like the Rapid Strike one that like pings and most of the ping is interesting. The regular attack's kind of boring, but I think that one's cool as well.
Yes.
That's about it.
Okay.
Glaceon's also cool. It's like a walling one and kind of spreading. There are so many spreading ones. I think Inteleon, Glandar Manitan, Glaceon, kind of the other Inteleon, Blastoise. So there's a bunch of spread, which is, I don't know, it's fine, but a lot of them are just very generic.
Yeah, I mean, but this is definitely to me a step up in terms of quality than we've seen. And you mentioned my other ones that I liked. Alolan Vulpix was kind of my second choice, and then the 2 Inteleon VMAXs are very good. And you have Kieran VMAX that saw use. We obviously need to make mention of Palkia, which is certainly a very strong card also within this set. So of cards.
Yeah. And which one do you think people chose?
I'm going to go with Palkia. It's the most recent strong one.
They said Palkia, and Palkia is so boring. Like Palkia, I mean, it's not the most boring Pokemon ever, but I don't know. Its attack's super generic. Its ability has some versatility, but at the end of the day, you can only use it once. So it's like, I don't know. This one, I feel like this answer is just so boring. Sure, it's good, but it's not the most interesting. Like, I don't know. I don't like that answer. It's a strong card, but I don't know.
I mean, I think for the voting, the stronger cards are going to do better in general, right? And partly because people know them more, they've played them more, right? A lot of people, especially the way it both with PTCGO and now with the crafting system. Do you really want to craft a full set of Glaceon VMAXs, right? It's a lot of resources to mess around with a little bit, right? So you're just going to stay away from cards like that, probably.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like Palkia. Palkia is fine. It's not like something bad, but I mean, I don't know. It's kind of annoying. It's very strong.
Yep.
And it is what it is, right? It certainly is. It's also very good with Chin Pao, but again, Chin Pao is pretty boring. It doesn't really have any new ideas. It's literally just Raichu V, but again, but I think Palkia is, it's fine. It does open up like Radiant Greninja as well as stuff like Empoleon V and a few other attackers as well, like Ice-Q and I'm sure there's some I'm forgetting too.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a very good, strong Pokemon. Right now it's certainly the best of the bunch, I would have to say. Although the Inteleon VMAX Rapid Strike obviously is strong, but it's part of a set of cards too. So
I swear it's also. Oh no, it's actually Alolan Vulpix V-Star's a little better now. I don't know. I think it's really good.
It's
obviously like part of an Arceus deck generally, but
right. I mean, Palkia is the one besides Ice Rider that is the center of the deck.
Well, now it's Chin Pao though. Usually Palkia is like a part of a Chin Pao deck.
That is true. It was the centerpiece, but also like with Ice Rider, back when the Inteleon engine was around.
Yeah. Next up we have Lightning, and Lightning is also one of my favorite types. Probably my favorite type, although not one I play too much. But yeah, I like, honestly, there are a lot I like here, but I'm between two. I think I might say Magzone V-Star. It's a really fun V-Star. It's very I was gonna say simple, but maybe not. It's attack. Its main attack does 180 for lightning colorless. You search deck
Hmm.
for up to 2 items, reveal them, and put them to your hand. So that's really nice, allowing you to like kind of set up and do some cool combos and have greater consistency. And then Electro Star does for your V-Star power for 2 lightning, 90 to your opponent's Pokemon. So that
Hmm.
just Radiant Greninja's attack, which is good. So I think it's interesting, allowing various different routes you can go with it, and it has some depth, and it's interesting. And then I like Flying Pikachu VMAX as well. Obviously, that
Hmm.
one's very good. But it's just funny. It walls stuff. It's very good, and I really like the free retreat as well. I think it works nicely.
Yeah. I mean, I have a bunch of lightning. This is one of the longer lists of my like cards from it. There's 15 here, and there's definitely some solid options. My favorite though is probably not the most solid one, but it's a fun one. In that Surfing Pikachu, the only lightning Pokemon that doesn't use lightning energy, but then we can use Melanie. 160 for 3, and it does 30 to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So I enjoy spread decks, I gotta say. So, they have a full bench. Your damage numbers are pretty good. Of course, if they have mana, if you want, we don't want to see that, but it's fun. And just like kind of the Flying Pikachu, the art is a bit absurd, right? This chubby Pikachu
That looks
on
exactly
this
like me when I go surfing.
exactly balancing on 1 foot here, going along. So having a good old time there. So again, I know it's not the best one, but I like it a lot. Um, and then other ones that I like, I've enjoyed Jolteon VMAX. I played it. I know
Oh, you
I
did?
Jolteon VMAX.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe. Okay. I haven't.
you don't like it
It's
at all.
fine. It like its damage is really low and it just gets one shot by Urshifu, which used to
Yeah,
be like a major problem. Now it's not really that big of a deal. But like Jolteon, I don't know. It seems like it doesn't seem great. It was okay, but now I'd say it's not great.
yeah. I mean, the Regieleki VMAX, I like from the Maridon deck. So, that's nothing too exciting unto itself. Tapu Koko VMAX, that's been a strong one, and I've played that in the past, and certainly go back to that from time to time. If you're behind on prizes, your opponent's paralyzed, which is nice. And then the other one that I haven't played yet because I haven't crafted it, but I need to do is Rotom V Star. I like the V, and the V Star is just the V Star is just ever a small upgrade of the V. Not a lot, quite frankly. It's 250 HP is very low, but doing damage based on tools in the discard pile that go to the lost zone. So it's kind of fun in that regard. It's different, I will say.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I
I
know you
also
don't like
like.
it.
Yeah, I think more Pico VMAX is kind of interesting. More Pico VMAX itself is kind of boring, but then the V like has synergy with it.
Hmm.
Bolton again, same boat where I like the V and
The
then the
V,
VMAX
yeah.
like adds stuff, and then Zero Aura. I guess I didn't really talk about this before, although it was something that came up. But Zero Aura is one of those Pokemon with both a VMAX and V Star.
Okay.
Specifically, these two came out together. They're kind of cool. They're not like that cool, but they're as a package, they're kind of interesting, and you can like use them for different purposes, which is kind of cool. Although they're kind of expensive to power up, except for Zero or VMAX's first attack, which is actually very good. Um, but I don't know, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and of course now you have electric generator if you want to play it, um, and of course the old Flaffy route if you really want to try to roll the dice a little bit. So,
Yeah. And then what do you think was the fan favorite here?
all right, fan favorite. I'm gonna not go with a. Well, no, I'm gonna go with a Pikachu. I think it's gonna be the Flying Pikachu. It's Pikachu, and it's been a strong Pokemon part of the World's Championship deck and such. So, Flying Pikachu is my guess.
Yep, it's flying Pikachu, baby. It's a cool card. It's really funny looking as well. It's
Yes.
just like they just ripped off Up, except I think Flying Pikachu is first, but whatever. Um, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's fairly strong, right? Its walling effect, 160 damage isn't overpowering, but it certainly has a place in decks. So, um,
Yeah.
and it doesn't hurt being part of the World Championship deck. I gotta assume.
Yeah. Next up, we have Psychic, which is I don't know if this is the largest selection. It might be. I believe it has 16. And a
Yeah.
lot of really interesting ones here. I'm
Hmm.
gonna go with my favorite. It's gonna be Dragon Ball VMAX, which is like a spread one. It's
Yeah.
cool. It's not that crazy, but it's cool. And I also like Hisuian Typhlosion. It's definitely worse than Dragon Ball, but it's cool as well with a V-Star power that lets you instantly KO something if they have 4 damage counters on them, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Also, I really like Mawile V-Star. I guess I haven't played it yet. I really got to play it, but if it's attack it swing, if you swing in, you do 180. It's kind of like Urshifu or Urshifu VMAX. I have to say Urshifu
Hmm.
VMAX or Gillespie GX or something like that. Where you do more if you swing in, and your V-Star power is just like a gust, but then you switch into Mawile, which is kind of cool.
Hmm.
So I think that one's fun, and also there are a lot I like here. Whimsicott V-Star is another one that's kind of annoying to have to deal with, but it stops special energies and tools from being played. And then your V-Star power is like an attack that does snipe based on how much energy is attached to it.
Hmm.
And talk about I hope I didn't steal any of the ones you wanted to talk about too much,
No, not
but
really. No, you have not.
yeah, I know which ones you want to talk about, or at least which one
Yeah.
you like.
You know.
Deoxys is cool. Again, it's kind of like spread, or it's like snipe and stuff, and its Vista powers like scaling. It's honestly kind of a knockoff of some of the other ones, but it's fine. And there's the VMAX that goes with it. It's the one that came out with Zero Aura. It was the doubled. These aren't as interesting, but
Hmm.
and then Espeon's cool as well as it's a I don't know. It's like a nice tech Pokemon, but it's not as interesting either.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you only covered one of the Pokemon that I like from this, and being Dragapult, which I like. And I actually have this was one that was a tough one for the top Pokemon. Sylveon VMAX is my top pick. Played, in trying to make those Sylveon Rapid Strike box decks, which were okay. I mean, they were certainly a viable deck for a while there. Max Harmony, 70 damage plus 30 more for each different type of Pokemon on your bench. So you'd put together kind of a Rapid Strike box or a different, you might have different Vs and V Maxes early on. Like you before rotate, might put a Crobat V for a dark type. You might play a Leafeon V to accelerate energy on your first turn with a grass type and such. So building a rapid strike box with some different weaknesses you could hit for, and obviously avoid weakness yourself, made things interesting. The damage output was not quite what you'd like on Sylveon VMAX. That was one problem with it. It did have the was it the ribbon badge? I think it was that the opponent takes one less prize if they knock it out. So that that's kind of a fun thing too. A VMAX with 310 that only gives up 2 prizes. So I like that, and I certainly messed around with that a good bit. Have played it again recently too. The other
Yeah, I
one,
think
go ahead.
I think Sylveon, like the Rib Badge, honestly makes it very good. And in terms of like seeing competitive use, I think it's kind of underplayed. People aren't playing. People are playing Lost Vacuum, but not like absurd amounts. Well, it depends on the deck, but it's not like a common inclusion in any deck. So
Hmm.
I think it's definitely like a really nice card with the new tool. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and box decks give versatility. Box type decks generally get underplayed, partly because they're a little tricky, right? To get the build properly and to make the right plays, you need to know your opponent's deck quite well as yourself, and how to build it is constantly changing with the meta. So it's a good thing just to keep in mind. And the other card that was really close was Shadow Rider VMAX, which was a beast for a while, right? And the other Calyrex. I liked Ice Rider, and I enjoy Shadow Rider too. This was the one that was the strongest one out of the gate, right? With Max Geist.
With Alchemy VMAX as well.
Yes, yes, it had that. So it's not obviously not as good now. You can mess around with it certainly with the Gardevoir deck or something. Max Geist for 10 plus 30 more for each psychic energy attached to all your Pokemon. So it would take time to build up. But Underworld Door was and still is a very, very good ability. Once during a turn, you may attach a psychic energy from your hand to one of your bench psychic Pokemon. If you do, you draw 2 cards, and you can do that once per each Shadow Rider in play. So getting things, having the energy in hand would probably be the weak link to this deck, because you had to have it already in hand. But a very, very nice ability to accelerate and draw with it. So I like it for that aspect. I don't know how much have you played Shadow Rider?
I don't know. I didn't play it when it came out because it was PCGO where you couldn't get anything. I played it
Yeah.
since then though. It's pretty. I mean, it's obviously pretty good.
Hmm.
It's not great in standard right now, but like expanded, it's good. It's kind of fun because you get these really big hands.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't need to be doing that much other than just like getting energy, which is not that hard to do. So
Hmm.
it's a fun deck where you can just obviously get these big hands, then kind of do some other stuff with it as well. But honestly, like you're focused on setting up. And usually when you're set up, you're just kind of chilling there. So it can get a little boring, but I think it's a cool one. Should you talk about Mew?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's one of I definitely want to talk about because obviously you mean Mew VMAX. I
Yeah.
have two Mews to talk about. So Mew VMAX, which everyone knows
There's only
about.
one Mew.
Well, there's Mewtwo, which is in my mind it's a Mew, but
Well, it's not Mew.
it's a relative or something. I
Well,
don't know
they're
the
all relatives of
Pokemon.
Mew. That's how Pokemon works.
So Mew VMAX Fusion Strike is the Fusion Strike deck, really the only one that really has been viable. That I mean, I've been trying to work on some alternate Fusion Strike decks, and it just
Wait, what?
well, Fusion Strike is a package, right? And
No,
Genesect,
but what else have you been doing?
well, with some of the single prizers, right?
Oh,
There's
like
a whole
wait,
bunch of other Fusion Strike cards out there. I
there's
just
Meloetta, Genesect, Oricorio.
there's
You
enough. There's a
know,
bunch more.
no, there's some
They're
other
not.
ones. There's not that many more. They're not very good either.
No, that's just it. None of them are.
But there's there's
They're not.
Deoxys. Deoxys is okay.
Yeah, but But again, you play it. You can play it as one of in a Mew Genesect deck. It's none of the other Fusion Strike cards work on their own, and Genesect's very strong. But Mew does. Obviously, it copies the attacks of your other Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. With Max Miracle, I mean Cross Strike Fusion. Sorry, for two colorless, you can pay for it with a DTE if you want. Um, and obviously then you often you copy Genesect or Meloetta, so a good amount of damage there, good flexibility, free retreat, which helps too. And then Max Miracle does 130 for two Psychic if you play basic Psychic or the Fusion Strike energies, and then it hits through effects, which depending how if walling decks become a thing, which they get their runs when they become popular. You
Yeah,
might
everyone's like, you
need
know what?
that.
We can stop UV Max with Duraludon, and then UV Max just hit through it, and people are sad.
Yeah, although you're only doing 130, so it takes time, right, to hit
Yeah,
through it.
yeah. Uh-huh.
But so it wasn't a gimme, but it's nice having that option, and obviously Genesect and the other the MUV, which we're not really considering, but again, it copies those attacks potentially, so which means you can shuffle it into your deck. What you do 70 damage and shuffle into your deck, right? The VMAX with all attached cards. So it's a way to get a damaged VMAX out of play too if you have a V on the bench. So very versatile, strong deck. Obviously, that's a big option. I also want to make mention of the V Star. Mostly gets I played
A
it with
Mewtwo V Star,
Mewtwo V Star. I'm sorry,
not
yes,
Mew.
not Mew V Star. Correct. Sorry about that. With Slipurge is in one of the starter decks. So it's at the end, pairing it with Lunatone Soul Rock, which is probably the best way to play it, even if you want to customize your deck, which is certainly a good thing to do. So it's a psychic V Star that it's not as strong as some, but I've enjoyed messing around with it, I guess.
Yeah. I guess with like Lunarock.
Yeah, you don't like Lunatone Soul Rock, so it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, one, it was like the only deck you saw on ladder for like a while, which was not fun. I mean, it wasn't hard to beat. You just play like whatever, but it was still kind of silly. And then I don't know. But do you want to guess the everyone's favorite?
I'm gonna have to go with Mew VMAX being
Believe it or not, it's not Mew VMAX unless I forgot that one on the poll too. No, it's Shadow Rider actually.
okay. That would have been my next guess, but wow. Okay. I mean, all right. I'm glad to see it. I mean, Mew VMAX has been really a huge Pokemon since it came out, so I'm surprised it didn't win, but that's good. I mean, Shadow Rider obviously was super strong, and it's made a comeback with some Gardevoir. You can try it out if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm looking at the polls and like, yeah, Mew VMAX, like, I mean, it's good, but who likes Mew VMAX, right? It's like,
It's not fun to play against, right? So there's a lot of people. If you don't like
yeah,
playing it, you probably hate it. Just kind of like the old like ADP, right? You either love to play it or you just thought it was the worst thing in the world.
yeah. But next up we have fighting. There are a few I actually really like here, and this one was tough as well.
Hmm.
I'll start with. I guess I'll start with. I'll just talk about the V stars, two of them. The Student Destroy V star is kind of interesting. Honestly, though, it wasn't the World Championship deck. But really just because it hit fighting weakness, which was a little boring. Like in that deck, it's actually boring. But as a
Yeah.
card as a whole, it's interesting. You can do more damage from discarding energies. And your V star power is okay, which is kind of cool. And also
Hmm.
the V allows you to hit through effects and setup. And I think the overall lines are really cool. It's not too powerful, but it's nice. And then, excuse me, Aerodactyl V Star here. It's
Hmm.
actually also cool. Its main attack 240, put 3 cards from the top of your deck into the lost zone isn't like awful, but it's not great.
Hmm.
But then it's like payable, and it's also, in my opinion, it's like directly better as a tech in the deck, especially with your Ancient Star ability, which pretty much just it's not path, but it turns off V abilities, which are a lot of abilities. So you can stop Lake
Right.
Luminia, but most importantly, you stop Lugia if they haven't used their V-Star power yet. You probably just win then.
Hmm.
Uh, so I don't know. I like Aerodactyl a lot. I think it's very powerful. Also, it isn't weak to Psychic, it's weak to Grass, which is much better. So I don't know. I think this one's cool. This is my favorite, I guess. It's nothing crazy. I know there are a lot that you really like as well, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's not. This is one of the more limited set of cards to choose from. There's what, 5, 9, 10, 11. So I'm not sure if there's less than 11 in a set, but yeah. And this is another one that's close to me. So the one that's my number 2 pick is a very strong one, which is Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. It's close to being my number 1 pick. I've played this one. I played this the most, I think, of any of these fighting Pokemon. Obviously, Gale Thrust for 1 energy does 150. If it swings to the bench, you have your Rapid Strike Tower of Water Stadium, and you have Octillery, the other Rapid Strike Pokemon, to pair it with. And then Gmax Rapid Flow, you discard the energy, but it does 120 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. So a nice option there. It's been a strong Pokemon when it came out, and still is strong, right? It's seen its ups and downs. It's always been decent. But then when I'm gonna do my number 1 pick, and I have to, the way Live has ordered things is very random for me. But there it is, Sandaconda VMAX, which I know you don't respect.
Wait. We're just wondering, where is it for you? So let's go in order real quick of the fighting. I want to see if they line up.
Okay, so let's see. So it goes Stonejourner,
Mhm.
Machamp,
Yeah, Machamp.
Decidueye, Hisuian Decidueye, Machamp, Aerodactyl, Colossal, Sandaconda, Lycanroc, Single Strike, Rapid Strike, Lucario, Cleaver.
Okay, so for me, the Sandaconda and Lycanroc were switched to the Urshifus.
Okay,
But the rest was the same. Like I have no idea what this order is.
because it's
Like
not
obviously
release
Stonejourner
order.
was first. Yeah, Stonejourner came out first. It's not like how many counts of a card we. Well, okay, I don't actually own Sandaconda or Lycanroc. Apparently, I don't own Lycanroc. I thought I owned one of that.
Mhm.
And then I don't know. I could be like somehow like Astral Radiance is obviously it starts with an A. Um,
Yeah, it's not release order. It's not alphabetical order. I also think
oh, it could have to do with the V's or something, but oh yeah, because
maybe.
no, wait, no, as soon as you drive V Star though, like I don't know. It's kind of strange.
And also
It's a very
depends which art you own too. Like if you own an art that was released from a different set is like the copy of the art you own, then I think it restruct orders it. It's just I don't know. It's a little weird. They need to get that ironed out somehow. But anyway, so but back to Sandaconda, right? The BDIF for fighting
yeah.
VMAX
Just
is
BDF period.
that's probably true. So I love a deck like this, and I look, I get it. It's
What
limited.
bad?
Well, see, this was the PTC Geo economy. You could pick up Sandaconda, probably get like 2 for a pack. So you could get it much cheaper. A lot of things are cheaper in live, but a card like this, which is like a 3rd tier at best VMAX, you could get for cheap in PTC Geo. So I'll just say that. That's partly why I played a lot of these decks, because they were the cards that I would get because they were cheap. But it does Sand Pulse, 60 damage for 1 energy. 1 energy, let's go. And it does 20 to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And I did say I like spread decks, right? And spread decks often aren't good. It does 60 plus 20 to each.
Yeah.
Not
Unlike
very
Urshifu, which
effective.
isn't Urshifu is so bad and not spread at all.
I understand. But this is only 1 energy. and you could Cheryl it off, right? And it's weak to grass, so that's a good weakness here. And you could Cheryl every turn and just attach one energy from hand. And it had the stone fighting energy back in the day that made it tankier, right, and stuff. So it
Yeah, now you
was.
have that tool. Well, but you don't have telescopic sight, but you have the Galarian chest plate, or no, the rock chest plate.
Hmm. So I like a deck like this, so that's why it's my number one pick. And then you could do 180 for three, which if they weren't doing a lot of damage, you need to Cheryl. You just kind of attach energies over time to get there, and then you could move any amount of energy from your Pokemon to your other Pokemon any way you'd like. So it gave you a little bit of thought there. That was like the one turn you had to think of the game. The rest of the time you just attached Cheryl. You'd Cheryl, attach, attack, and be done with
It's,
your
it's
turn.
like it's just like Superior V-Star.
So anyway, I like it. You don't like it. I'm pretty sure about that. So
It's not that bad. It's fine, but like
and then my other one's Lycanroc VMAX, which is okay.
that one's.
I don't.
I guess its second attack's better, but its first attack's kind of bad.
Well, it's really interesting actually.
It does like 60.
It does
It does 60 in like a roundabout
Well, it doesn't
way.
do 60, right? Here's Hunting Claw. If you're not familiar with
It actually does less than that.
well, what it says is Hunting Claw, and then you knock out one of your opponent's Pokemon in play that has 60 HP or less remaining. So if it has more than 60 HP, if they don't have a Pokemon down to that level of HP, it does
It's like
nothing.
a 0 HP snipe.
Yeah, but it's fair. But it's interesting, and
It's
Manaphy
interesting.
doesn't stop it because of what it does. So it's different, right? And I like things that are different.
It is different.
Yeah, and then obviously I said Rapid Strike Urshifu, and those are really the ones that I've liked out of the fighting.
Yeah. I guess I'll talk about a few more. Kleber V-Star is kind of interesting. Just third of each Pokemon you discard, and its regular attacks kind of generic, but pretty alright. It's actually, I don't know, it's like kind of cool one. And then also Stonejourner, just super annoying, but it just like heals. That's it. It just kind of sits there and heals. It's kind of toxic, but it's a deck and it exists. And I've come to accept that. Although it rotated. Let's go.
And just so people, if you're not familiar with it, because not everybody played it, but it was around and it was annoying. Stone Gift, you attach a fighting energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon with the attack, and if you do, you heal 120 damage from it. So you're just kind of healing, getting energy in play, and maybe eventually doing some damage.
Yeah. Next up,
Is that
Dark.
Well, wait,
we
didn't get to the faint. Don't forget the audience vote.
Yeah. What do you think it was?
So I'd say Rapid Strike Urshifu.
You are right. Yeah, it is that one. Shocker. That's like obvious. That's like it's the best and it's the most interesting. You could argue, I guess, for some of the other ones being better or more interesting, but
right.
Generally, I think most people would agree on that one.
Yeah, I
think it's up there at least.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the obvious choice for trying to guess what people would pick. So, and a very solid choice. We both have a lot of respect for the card for sure.
Yeah, it has some like thought behind it, and when you're playing it and building it, it's seen so many different builds, and they've all been cool. Some of them have been kind of oppressive, but not really. They've mostly been all right. It's had so many different partners, and also out of the three like battle styles, I think the Rapid Strike one's the most well thought out. It's interesting, and creative. So,
yeah, I mean, Fusion Strike is Mugenisect. It's very one dimensional, and the Single Strike kind of it's been weird. I guess it was hard.
Yeah, there was like Single Strike Urshifu, which is fine. I think like. Some parts of it are really boring, like just do big damage with the Pokemon, which you've seen in both the Lugia build and then like the Single Strike Urshifu build. But then stuff like Gengar, VMAX, the Umbreon VMAX and Duraludon VMAX are all a little bit more interesting. I imagine we'll talk about Duraludon later. Actually, we'll talk about all of them later. So let's move on to Dark.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's see. So Dark, I just want is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 again. So about a number we've been seeing. So for me, the choice is obvious, and it's Eternatus VMAX, the most exciting Pokemon ever made. But look, I know it's boring and you hate it for that, but a very good Pokemon. I think you have to respect it too. 340 HP, so it was, I assume, the tankiest Pokemon when it came out. If you're not familiar with it, it's rotated. Eternal Zone ability. If all your Pokemon in play are dark Pokemon, you can have up to 8 Pokemon on the bench. If something like Path gets laid down, then you have to discard down to 5. And with the Dread End attack for 2 energy, dark and colorless, 30 damage for each of your dark Pokemon in play. So up to 270 with a full bench in the active. So it was a very strong deck for a while, and then it came back with Weezing, which was a bit of a surprise later on in its life.
Yeah, it's like the big one. And when people talk about the VMAX era, they're probably talking about Eternatus. It's pretty straightforward, but it has some amount of thought. I don't know. It's some people like it a lot. You liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. This was, when I picked it up, the strongest deck that I had owned up to that point in time. I think I had a Welder box,
like Mad Party
and Mad Party, yeah, and Welder box. The Welder was good too.
No,
but
Welder was good. Welder might have been better.
It was. Welder was tough though. This was back in the day of the Players Cup, one of those, which I was trying to qualify for. And the Welder, I had just gotten the Welder box, which was good, Tempo Zard, but I hadn't played it enough to play it well. So I was able to play Eternus pretty well because it's more straightforward.
Yeah. And then, so in terms of Dark, there are a few I have to talk about. Actually, there are a lot. Like, here, do you have any others you want to talk about? I see one other one.
Yeah, I have two other. There's two for me. I mean, I don't know if you have either. I'll say the less interesting one to me, Single Strike Umbreon, which might be on your list too.
Yeah, that was my number one.
All right, so yeah. I'll leave that for you.
No, you can talk about it. You can talk about it. I have plenty more to talk about with Dark.
I mean, the nice thing for me is the Dark Signal ability. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve it, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with your active, so a free boss, essentially, when you play it. So I would toss that into the Eternatus deck, which, of course, you wouldn't do with it because you didn't like Eternatus. And its attack, though, I found disappointing, which is why I wouldn't have ranked it at the top. But 160 for 3 is not the amount of damage I want to see on a VMAX Pokemon. But the ability, quite strong. And obviously, you could put it in the Single Strike deck with the Single Strike Urshifu.
Yeah, that's why I like it. It has more, well, not necessarily with Urshifu, but it has like more depth because it's Single Strike. Obviously, you like Duraludon Arceus, and Umbreon can be played in Duraludon. Have you played that deck, Umbreon Duraludon Arceus?
I have tried it a little bit, yeah.
I mean, it's very inconsistent, but
yeah.
It's a cool deck. I think Umbreon has depth, but it's not too complicated either. Also, its ability, so I don't know, it's just good. It's Gust. It opens up options for other supporters. I like it. I honestly don't play it that much, but it's really good. Yeah, and then I also like. I'll speak about Gengar VMAX too, which is kind of cool. It's not my favorite by any means, but
and another Single Strike.
Yeah, this is another Single Strike one. I saw play with a few things and by itself and stuff. It's kind of interesting. And you have another VMAX you want to talk about, right?
I do, which I'm pretty. This one is not on your list. I'm pretty sure.
It's not.
And there are some other decent ones too, but Crobat VMAX, 300 HP. It did see some play actually in some meta decks, because Crobat obviously was very good with draw. Crobat V, right? Draw you have 6 in hand for this ability, and then this could help avoid it being one shot or perhaps do some damage you want. But I liked it for the first attack. And the Crobats were useful too for setting up, but Stealth Poison does 70 damage for 2 energy. Okay, not the greatest thing, but then you would switch it to your bench. Your opponent's Pokemon's act is poison, and you switch to the bench with one of your bench Pokemon. So then I was off trying to make it work with the Weezing, which would ability lock them. So a hit and run deck that would lead to an ability lock besides some damage and they're being poisoned, trying to make the numbers work out with the deck. It wasn't overly successful, I will say, for me, but it was fun to try and make it work.
Yeah, I guess.
You'd agree.
Like, I like Weezing. Yeah, I like Weezing. I like that, but I did not like Crobat at all.
I kept
Yeah.
wanting to get
I mean,
a
it barely did more damage than Wheezing, so.
right because Wheezing doesn't do damage, but the poison puts 4 damage counters on, so it only does what 10 more damage between the 2 turns.
Yeah. So it's not great, but anyways, and I guess I'll definitely talk about Garbodor. Garbodor VMAX is bad, but it can have 2 tools. That's
Yeah,
about it. I
right.
played it. I wanted to play some it's like control deck with it. You just like stick like Spirit Mask and like Rugged Helmet and stuff on, and you annoy your opponent. It's not. I don't know. It's not the best thing in the world, but I
Hmm.
mean it's pretty bad, but it's funny. That was Honchkrow V, so I might need to mess around with that some.
Yeah,
But then the V stars, I really like all the Dark V stars.
yeah, they're solid.
Darkrai V Star, its attack just does more for each Dark Energy attached to all your Pokemon, which is like that's fine. It's nothing crazy, but there are definitely ways of doing that, and it gets a little interesting. In
Yep.
Star Abyss, I really like allowing you to recover 2 Dark Energy or sorry, 2
2 items.
item cards from your discard pile, and then put them back into your hand, which is really nice, especially late game. You can use this
Hmm.
with various item cards. Also, as soon as Samurott V Star, its attack's pretty basic. Does 220 if your opponent's active has damage cards on them, which is actually really awkward to do now without Glancing Zagoon. But
Yeah.
before it was pretty doable. And also, your V Star power put 4 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. It's quite good. And then the last one is Drapion V Star, which is actually interesting. Its attack's bad, but Drapion V is used to counter Mew pretty much, and a few other things now. Depending where it's put in. And then
Right.
also, Japion's V-Star power allows index that don't play a V-Star power, which is less and less with the Force Seal Stone.
Yeah.
But you can use Hazard Star to poison and paralyze your opponent and put 3 damage counters on your thumb instead of 1. So you can actually have a solid V-Star power that's pretty annoying to have to deal with sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, Drapion V gets a lot of play. The V Star generally isn't going in decks, but it's there to consider.
Yeah. And what do you think? This one was actually, I said it was tied. There are 2 that were very close.
2. All right. So if I go with 2, I'm gonna say Eternatus because that was just kind of of the V's that's the poster one. I'll just go with Eternatus and not worry about the other one. It wasn't.
No one likes
No
Eternatus.
one likes Eternatus. How can you not? All right. Well, then go on.
Eternatus isn't no. It was Darkrai. People like Darkrai a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I can see
It's
that.
one that isn't great, but it's okay, and it pops up from time to time. And then also Umbreon because it's cool.
Yeah, and it gets splashed in different decks besides not necessarily. Sometimes it's more of a feature or it can get splashed in.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think the Dark lineup's pretty strong, and they've been very solid throughout the Sword and Shield era.
Yeah, yeah, Dark is definitely a solid type. So
Mhm.
takes us to Metal type, which I guess you forgot one of the cards you said.
I think I forgot to. I just put up a poll on my channel for it. I think there are only like 2 votes. But
Okay.
whatever.
So this
Yeah,
one only
the
has
algo's
10 Pokemon in it. So outside of Dragon, this probably has the least number of choices, I think.
Yeah.
If I did my counting correctly. But my number 1 choice is the one you left off, Origin Form Dialga V-Star. Now this is obviously a very strong card, and for tried to pick to ones that are more interesting, but I think Star Chronos attack is interesting. 228 damage. You need 5 energy, and then you get to take another turn right after it's V-Star power attack, which is super strong. And then Metal Blast is one of those that takes time to build up, 40 damage plus 40 more for each metal energy attached to this Pokemon. So, especially if you start Chronos, then you're doing pretty big damage the following turn usually. So I like it. It's a fun thing when you get to take back-to-back turns.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I don't know. It's a lot to pay.
Yes, it's
So the
difficult.
deck's always been awkward and like kind of weird and inconsistent and stuff. There have been different builds, but I'm not a fan of this one. It's not awful, but I'm still not a fan. That's the only one you like, right?
No, I have 2 others if you want me to
What do you have?
mention it.
2 others? Sure.
Well,
Let's hear 'em.
one
One's
is
Corviknight, right?
yeah, which you want to talk about, right?
No, I
Or
don't. I
no?
know you played Corviknight. I didn't really
So
play it. It's
Corviknight,
whatever.
so it's 320 HP, and it's a pivot, and everything we know is that it's a pivot is just 10 times better than every other card in the game. So it has that going for it. And then Lustrous Body ability prevents all effects of your opponent's Pokemon's ability to unleash Pokemon. So back in the day, with Zigzagoons and pings from Inteleon's, the Inteleon's still around, but the good Drizzle's gone, so you don't really see much of that. So it wasn't taking damage, so it became pretty tanky. And then so it was largely a tanky deck. It had free retreat. The attack was okay. It did 240 damage for 3, but then it couldn't attack the next turn, which wasn't great. I think I might have tried it with Memory Capsule because you couldn't use that attack, and then you could copy the V's attack, I think. But then I build where you had 4 Corviknight Vmaxes and you had Crystal Cave in play, and you just kind of switch between the 4 Vmaxes, just potentially just at times just stalling out the game almost, sometimes attacking, sometimes a stall game, and just kind of heal them off because if they couldn't gust you up, you had, 3 or 4 turns to heal off with Crystal Cave, so you got off a lot of damage. So that was my not the type of deck that you like to play, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, then you could also it was kind of interesting. You could then use Memory Capsule and copy the attack, which would stop your opponent from retreating and then kind of like trap something in the active, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But not like that interesting because you didn't like do anything all game.
No, then you then you just were stalling them out, and if they couldn't attack, you just kind of just let them sit there and just heal and not do much for the game. So I like decks that don't do much. So you don't. And then the other one, the Zacian.
I don't do much.
No, you don't like you personally don't like to do much because you're a lazy bum, but you don't like decks that don't do much. Whereas I like decks that don't do much. You don't like decks that you just kind of just sit there and stare at it for the game.
Yeah. And then what was your third? I have no idea what this one is.
Zacian Vstar. So
Zacian,
which I like more than Zamazenta. You don't like it, right? It's not on your list, is it?
No, Zamazenta is on my list.
Yeah. See, this is the thing. I've liked Zacian V. Obviously, you could put back in the day, right? You could, it's rotated now, and especially like with ADP or Luke Metal, they were fun decks, a good attack there. But the problem with the Zacian V is you couldn't attack back-to-back turns. So that if you had the V-Star, it solved that problem because then you could do less damage at 200. I understand, but you've increased your HP and you can attack multiple turns. So I like that about it. And then its V-Star Power was an attack. Star Sword did 310 damage for 4 energy, and did 30 damage to itself, but potential to one-shot most Pokemon you're up against, or with Choice Belt, you could probably one-shot every Pokemon that you're up against. So I kind of liked it as an option.
Yeah. It's fine. It's like, I don't know. It's pretty boring in my opinion. Like Zacian V itself is kind of boring, but I don't know. I think this doesn't add too much depth to it.
No, you play a Zacian V based deck and you put like one Zacian V Star in. So it's nothing to get too excited about. But so why don't you talk?
Wait. When did you do that? Well, yeah.
Later
Zacian,
on,
these
obviously.
weren't out together very long.
No, they were not out long. But I did pick up at least one V Star, and I did play it briefly.
But you played in expanded though, right? Did you play it in standard?
I think I played it in standard also briefly. Because then obviously you had Metal Saucer and Zacian, obviously still a good ability, Intrepid Sword. So, it's something you can do, is what I'll say.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll talk about the ones I like. So I did mention Zamazenta. It's kind of cool. It reduces damage next turn. You take next turn, which is really nice. It's not that interesting, but
it's V-Star power.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I also like, I think Scissor's kind of interesting. It's kind of tanky. It's very basic, but kind of interesting. But then I got to go with my boy Metagross. Allow you to search your deck for any 2 cards with your attack, which is so fun. And then you just go ahead and like heal. And you can use Max Rush, which does 100, then 250 next turn, which is pretty good. It's not that good, but there are times when it's like very difficult to deal with and annoying. But Zap Traction, just being able to switch your deck and just kind of chill is really fun. Yeah,
so a control style deck where you're kind of making life difficult with your opponent. You search out any 2 cards you want. Yeah, it's solid, and you use this to qualify for the Players Cup one season, correct?
Team challenge.
Team
Team
challenge. I'm sorry,
challenge.
team challenge. That's right. So team challenge. So you brought this in, and your opponents just didn't know what to do up against it. I think was the case.
Yeah, they're just like confused, and then I won. So
Yes.
yeah, then that's pretty much how all the games in ladder went as well. All my opponents were just kind of confused, and then all of a sudden I won. It didn't have any clear win condition, but all of a sudden, as I said, you just kind of win.
Yeah, because you're kind of would try to deck them out, but you had no milling, and you had to do the work to set up. So
Eventually, you'd like miraculously take 6 prizes, like all of a sudden.
Yeah. So, and is there anything else from the metal Pokemon, or is that it for you?
Well, I guess we could talk about Aggron. We were saying Charizard was bad. Aggron does 270 for 5 and then does damage to itself. That's like funny. It's really bad, but it's funny.
And the retreat cost is 4 too, just in case you might want to have.
Like 4, like retreat cost of 4 doesn't really. You always make a big deal about when a Pokemon has a retreat cost of 4, but I feel like it doesn't like actually matter. If it's even 2, you're probably not retreating it.
But back,
especially 3, you're not retreating.
Right, because before rotation with 2, you could have air balloon and you could retreat for free still.
Yeah.
So which does matter. Or even if it was 3, you could just discard 1 with air balloon, and there's times that was the play to make too.
Yeah.
I mean, without air balloon, it doesn't matter as much, I would say.
Yeah.
All right. So
looking at wait. So you see the Caparage of Vmax, right? Does it look like pixelated to you before you click on it? The nose. Does it look all pixelated? It looks all pixelated for me for some reason.
No. Now this is the regular art, not the alt art, right?
Yeah, like because you're looking and you see all the cards. Okay, I don't know. Maybe it's kind of strange. I'm sure it's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah. All right, so I guess should time for me to pick what the audience voted for?
Yeah, which is not Dalga.
I know, although it might have won, right? That wouldn't have been a surprise if it won, and I think I would have picked that one for as my pick for that.
Even though it's boring and stuff,
but it is the best one by far of this list. I think, right? I mean,
yeah,
it just is. So I'll say Metagross Vmax. It was on your channel, so maybe they you brainwash people.
Although some people like that one, but people said Zacian actually.
All right, they went with my boy Zacian Vstar. Partly just because people like Zacian V, I suspect.
Yeah,
and it gets them to think about that. All right, so we're getting towards the end, so we'll skip over Fairy type.
Yeah.
Although I know I'm not supposed to mention it because
there are only 10 types. There are 10 types. That's my position. There are only 10 types.
I searched through by like clicking each type one at a time, and Fairy was one of the selections. So I'm just saying, Live recognizes it where they should not. So down to Dragon type. This is the most limited list. There's 6 cards.
I didn't put Dragonite V-Star on the list
because you only put up one poll of 5 cards.
Yeah. So, but like Dragonite V-Star is bad too. I don't think anyone would have voted for that one.
So out of the 6 cards, I have 3 of them as liking them. So this is a high percentage
3?
of
wow.
likes.
I think I know what they are.
All right. So you want I'm
not sure which ones.
So the number one choice, you probably know it, and that's Duraludon VMAX. One I've liked playing. Very strong.
Your number one. You're
my number
favorite.
One. Yes.
Yeah.
A single strike Pokemon. This is the one single strike that I played the most, but not in a single strike deck with Arceus or with Zacian early on. I was playing that back in the day with Zacian, and it had the Metal V, so you could Metal Saucer to it and such. So
that deck was really bad.
It was super inconsistent. It makes the Arceus Duraludon deck feel really consistent when you compare it to that. And Duraludon's still inconsistent. I grant you that, but the attack's very solid. Does 220 damage, hits through effects. You need fighting metal. That's a little tricky, but 220 is a solid number. It's got 330 HP, so that's nice. It's very hard to one shot. It has no weakness, and Skyscraper ability rate prevents damage done from Pokemon with special energy attached. So it is a solid tanky Pokemon potentially. At times it's been more tanky than others. You can do Crystal Cave or something if you want to heal from it. You have some options. So it can be tanky. It does nice damage. It's a nice partner with Arceus, I would say, if you can get things set up.
Yeah, it's like fine. I don't know. It's good, but also like path is bad.
Yeah, and right now that a lot of decks are just basic energy decks too. So that
Yeah, right now I
abilities.
don't think it's that good. It's certainly like a deck that exists, and it's fine, but
Well,
it's not my type of deck
it's
certainly.
not bad now in that it is hard to want to it's tanky now still. So if you think you can set it up in 220 damage is a solid number. You're knocking out Vs or basic EXs. So it's still an option, although not the best option. And you want me
Yeah.
to name some of my other Pokemon here?
I want to go and name the one that I like the most.
Please do.
Actually, I want to have you. No, yeah, we'll save the guessing to the end.
Okay.
Vijayco V-Star though is my favorite.
Mhm.
I mean, it can do all what the other ones do, for the most part.
Yeah.
Notably, I'm assuming you're going to talk about Giratina and Gudra. Definitely Gudra. I'm not
Actually,
sure if you're
Reggie
talking about
Drago was
Giratina.
my third one. So
Okay, yeah, I was wondering if you talk about Reggie Draco, but it can top a Giratina, which does big damage.
yeah.
In Gudra, it's like walls and stuff. It's cool. It has, in my opinion, like the most depth of all of them,
Mhm.
because it just copies attacks, and its V-Star power is kind of interesting. And it
But the
also
V
has
Star
great
power is
cross.
quite good, I think. Right? You discard your
Well,
the top seven cards of
it's
your deck, and you put any two cards from the discard pile into your hand,
but yeah,
including
but you
ones that were
kind of
already
glossed over the
there.
fact that you like mill 7 cards from your deck, which in some senses allows you to draw more or get what you want, but at the same time,
And
like
well, and Reggie Drago wants cards in the discard pile, but it's got its downside, but it's not. It makes sense with this card. That's what I'd say.
yeah, uh-huh. It's certainly interesting, definitely. And then Rayquaza VMAX is kind of interesting. Notably, its draw ability is
Hmm.
really nice. There was like
Yes.
a Rayquaza VMAX control deck, like stall deck that was kind of funny.
Hmm.
It was kind of bad, but it was funny. So I figured I'd mention that one. And then you said you weren't going to talk about Giratina, so I'll say Giratina. I mean, it's like a
Yeah.
part of the Lost Zone deck, and
Right.
it's honestly, it might be the best. Like I think Giratina, Arceus, or Giratina Lost Zone, those are definitely some of the best decks in the game right now. Like they're amazingly good.
Yes. I mean,
It's
Giratina
crazy.
does 280, so it one shots essentially every V Star out there, and then Star Requiem. You got to get 10 in the Lost Zone, so it's not easy, but you get there eventually with a Lost Zone deck, and then it knocks out your opponent's active Pokemon. Big Parasol, or whatever the Parasol is, that's rotated, so I don't think anything can really stop it. So you can one shot anything with the V Star attack.
Yeah.
And you didn't when you're talking Reggie Drago, you did. I don't think you mentioned Duraludon is also another good attack to copy with Reggie Drago. And you skipped the best part about Reggie Drago. I know it was an accident, and that's that you can play Gardenia's Vigor with it to get those grass energies into play. That's why you love it the
Or
most.
Fortress.
Well, that would at least be more consistent, wouldn't it? Um,
It would be. It would be.
if Fortress was
You
a
can guarantee lose the game every time.
if Fortress was a dragon type that had an attack you could copy, though, it could make it interesting. But of course, it's not. Uh,
Yeah.
and then I'm just going to mention Gudra. You got to love the Goo, Hisuian Gudra V Star, which makes the Leafeon V Star's attack look terrible. It does Rolling Iron, does 200 damage, and then it takes 80 less damage the next turn at 270 HP and no weakness. So it becomes you can't one shot it, and then it's Moisture Star, V Star power. You heal all damage from it one turn. So people are two shotting, or up against Lost Zone, they're having to three shot you, and then before they get to that knockout turn, you heal it off once. So now they're having to 4 or 5 shot this Pokemon that's doing 200 damage a turn. You can, it's definitely solid if you can make that happen.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. I think it's I don't know. It's cool, right?
Hmm.
Again, it's pretty basic. In terms of what it does, it's simple, but it's good with Lost Zone. And it's like okay with Arceus as well.
Yeah. All right, time to guess what people voted on now.
Yep.
This one's a tough one because in one sense I'll say Giratina. Although I
No, it was actually Reggie Draco.
really okay, that would not have been my next pick if I
Who
was.
would have been Duraludon.
It would have been Duraludon, yeah.
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of they're all like pretty close, except for Dragonite. That one's not so close.
Well, it wasn't on the list, right?
It wasn't on the list. I don't think that one's really close to being cool. But
No,
people did like Duraludon, like all the five, the big five are cool.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. No, that's in terms of depth for out of these 6 Pokemon, 3 or 4 of them are very good plays. So, very solid. So we come to
Wait,
color.
which are the
I guess 4. Well,
well,
Giratina's
not
good.
Rayquaza, not Rayquaza,
Goodra,
Dragonite.
Regidrago, and Duraludon.
Yeah. In
Right.
terms of Dragonite, yeah, Dragonite. Partially the reason why it's so bad is because the V does like the same amount of damage as it.
Right. I mean,
So
the V's good and C's play. So therefore, why do you play the V Star?
yeah, you do damage your own bench, but the V Star takes more energy and can't attack back-to-back turns, so that's not good.
Right, and it's got its V Star power, which is attack to accelerate energy, but you usually don't want to use your attack to accelerate energy. There's better, V Star powers out there.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and now we've come to the end with colorless.
Yep.
This one there are a few I like. I don't know. I'll kick it off with my favorite, I guess.
Hmm.
That being Regigigas V-Star. Its attack's pretty boring, but it has really high HP. As you would say, it has a 4 retreat cost. So that's whatever. But it's like big damage. It does 230 for 3, which is pretty solid. You'd rather do a tiny bit more, or obviously be cheaper, but
Hmm.
it's certainly respectable. But then you're at a really interesting V-Star power. If your opponent's taken all but one prize, then you can discard one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, which is just pretty crazy. And then you hopefully KO the active, and now all of a sudden
Right.
they can't do anything, and you are able to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting V Star power. Obviously, 300 strong for a V Star. 230, it's obviously 10. There's a number of things at 220, so that extra 10 may be useful, though it probably isn't.
Yeah, I feel like that the I'd like it to do more because it's a 220 is very a really nice number to hit, but then you also
Hmm.
often have a double turbo one, so you'll be still not hitting enough.
Right. I mean, I'd rather have the 220 from right on EX, which then I get free retreat with a beach court because that also can't attack and give up that 10 damage. So,
It's also basic and
yeah,
it's pretty different.
it is. But I'm just saying, in terms of the numbers and stuff, 230 for 3 without attacking it's awkward. But
Yeah.
that's your pick, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll talk about well, okay, there's another one that I also like, but I think you know what that one is, certainly. I'm not gonna talk about it. But then I also like Salamence, which is spread. Just kind of fun. And I like Cramorant as well. It's like a coin flip one. It has a really interesting V as well, which helps a lot. And Ditto also
Yeah.
copies attacks, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's very random as to what you're up against, but you just pay for it with your 3 colors energy, so you can do that. Um,
It makes like Charizard VMAXs and like Aggron VMAX attack way cheaper, so it's all worth it.
yes, as long as that's what they're playing and that's what you want to do, it's all good. So my number one pick is unfortunately obvious, but it's Arceus V Star. I think it's one of the best
I thought you were
Pokemon.
gonna say Meowth VMAX.
I'm sorry, I let you down there.
200 for 4, draw 3. It's Hop, but better.
Yeah, anything better than Hop is busted. So, but Arceus V Star, it's the defining V Star, I would say. 280 HP, which is fine. Trinity Nova attack 200, accelerate 3 energies from your deck to your V's any way you would like, so you can let you power up and any other V or V Star V Max. Other than those ones that take more energy than 3 energies, and you usually want to stay away from those anyway. And then Starbirth ability, just tremendous. Search your deck for any 2 cards, put them into your hands. So a super super strong card. And we have like Sharon's Care to scoop it up if it's damaged on it too. So a very strong card all around.
Yeah. Do you want to guess what the one people chose was?
Well, I'm just going to mention Hisuian Zoroark, which I like, and then the other card which I like, which I thought you might say, that's Togekiss VMAX.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say that
So,
one.
so I just wanted to. So 310 HP. It's free retreat, which is nice. 310 HP is unfortunately a little low, but then this is another one. You search your deck for 2 cards. It does max glide for 2 colorless, which obviously can be a DTE now, does 120 damage. And then you can search your deck for any 2 cards and put them into your hand. So it can kind of have a control type deck too, although then the 120 damage may become a problem. But it's fun, and I've done it and expanded, and it's okay there for sure. So it's a fun. I've had fun messing around with it.
Yeah,
And
it's
you've
like
played that
whatever.
too. So
In expanded or standard?
you've done
I guess
certainly in
standard.
standard, right?
Yeah, it's not that good. But it's fun. Like I mentioned, Metagross, it's kind of like it.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be really good, and I think it's had the potential to be, but no one really played it. With like Sharon's care, I thought it would be very good. But
All right. I'll take my guess here if we and I'm going to say Lugia V-Star. We neither of us mention it because we don't love it, but obviously it's super strong. I would think it's either that or Arceus. So I'll go with Lugia.
yeah, no, it was Arceus.
It's Arceus. Okay.
No one likes Lugia. I mean, some people do, but like
Everyone else
Lugia
hates
versus Lugia is kind of boring. It's actually gotten more interesting as time's gone on, which is
it.
good
Yes.
because it was really boring. But yeah, no, Arceus is like really good and fun. And now with like live, it's affordable too. So that's
Yes.
really cool. It literally like pretty much. I think for every type, we mentioned cards that go with Arceus.
Yes.
Because you can literally play like it with anything. Oh yeah, I remember I played Shadow Rider with Arceus. Yeah, I think that's what I did.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah.
Um,
And it essentially gives any V Pokemon viability, right? It's been paired with successfully with some silly things
yeah,
at
like we
times.
mentioned, Charizard VMAX, Aggron VMAX,
Yep.
those which are like absurd. Yeah, Arceus is like power them up. Pretty much any VMAX. Honestly, now it's almost bad to be like a low cheap attacker, because you don't have something to make you drastically better, which is kind of weird.
Hmm. So okay, so I'm pleased it's Arceus, and everyone probably has bad memories of Lugia because if you came onto live when the beta became global, everybody had Lugia because it was that was the new ladder, and if you didn't migrate your account, that's all anybody had was Lugia, and you just saw that all day long.
Yeah. So I definitely like. I don't know. I think this was interesting. I guess we went a little long, but not too long.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, a little
So
longer we thought, but I think we had stuff to say. And obviously the Vs are done being printed, so I think it's a logical time to have that discussion. But they're still being played a fair amount, so it's relevant too.
yeah. But I think that's it. I hope we all enjoyed. I'll check out, of course, as always, my community tab as well if you want to interact with these. And feel free to comment other ideas, and stuff like that. But we hope you enjoyed, and we're excited to see you next time.
Take care.